Australia is temporarily suspending its travel bubble with New Zealand over coronavirus concerns. A woman has tested positive to a highly infectious variant of the disease after completing hotel quarantine in Auckland. So travel between the two countries will be paused for 72 hours to prevent the potential spread of the virus. Joining me live now is Simon Westaway from the Australian Tourism Industry Council. Good to see you, Simon. Thanks for joining us this morning. So what did you make of this decision?
Well, it's an interesting decision. I guess there's been a level of inconsistencies around our border arrangements, particularly at the domestic level, but and to some degree at the international level. I mean, in a way, we have a micro bubble with New Zealand at the moment since mid-October. We've permitted people to come back through that New Zealand channel, if you like, be it Kiwi nationals or Australians returning home. The numbers have been extremely low. I guess we'll watch with interest because, whilst I don't think anyone's advocating that we can have an open slabber international border at this point in time, our concerns as an industry has been about bedding down the domestic situation. We do need to watch this one with some interest because I think industry really has had hope that, during 2021, we will get a two-way travel bubble emerged out of the New Zealand market, and then that'll be the foundation for what ultimately we hope and anticipate will be a safe and efficient open border when vaccines are in play.
It's just one case. Do you think there should have been more?
Well,
the trigger was pulled, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's very interesting, isn't it? We're receiving less than 2,000 people a month through this channel at the moment, and normally this market could generate up to 200,000 pre the virus a month just from Kiwis coming across here. So, yeah, it appears to be a really hard decision, but we have a hard international border as well. So, I guess it's not really going to touch the sides at the moment, regrettably anyway, in terms of our broader visitor economy.
So those numbers coming from New Zealand, had you expected more?
Yes and no. I think the difficulty is we've got a one-way bubble. So the arrangements for Australians, as many of your viewers would know, is that if we wish to get across to New Zealand at the moment, even out of a COVID-safe region, you'll have to do 14-day quarantine when you enter the country, be it for leisure, visiting friends and relatives, or business purposes. And we've allowed the one-way arrangement. Look, let's see what happens after the 72 hours, and possibly there may be a longer extension. I think what's important here is that we do get the principles in place and have the consistency so that as we get to this broader discussion, and it won't be today or tomorrow around our international border, hopefully we can get this New Zealand market up and running second half of this calendar year, possibly.
Do you fear that this could set the benchmark for a bursting of future bubbles down the track? So if there even is just one case that emerges somewhere else, then there's going to be a pause on things for several days or however long it takes?
Well, this is the issue, isn't it? That's a great question, because it depends how pure we want to be in terms of our interpretation. Now, New Zealanders that come across into Australia at the moment don't need to do a 14-day mandatory quarantine. They just come through the system, if you like. It's like a domestic flight, for want of a word, or domestic travel. So that's the big difference. I mean, the government isn't saying that they'll need to have quarantine arrangements in place for returning either Australians or New Zealanders coming across. So I guess we'll have to watch this one. Inconsistencies has been the big bugbear of industry for a long period of time now, and it's what's really messed with a lot of consumers' heads, and it's why we're seeing such difficulties. It's why the industry wants targeted, sustained support for business enterprises in the tourism industry beyond the end of JobKeeper in March, and we'll continue to use these types of examples as why we need that level of ongoing support.
Well, just on that, what would you prefer? I mean, the hospitality sector last week called for Hospo Keeper. Is there something that you'd be keen on, or that you'd be rallying the treasure for when it comes to the tourism sector beyond March?
Well, we're not going to come up with a gimmicky name. I think what's important is that we have targeted support for business enterprise. The tourism industry has this great ability to rebound quickly and get the economy stimulated. And anybody that did a drive visit or a holiday over this very disrupted Christmas New Year period, there are parts of our country that are doing quite well. There's no question about that. As long as you can drive there and you're within your own state, it's become okay to do that. It's interstate travel and international travel, as we've been talking about, which is where the huge disruption's been. we need to have seamless interstate travel. There's no question. I mean, the numbers remain well down, 60, 70%. We're a year into this now. In fact, I think it's today is if you like the anniversary of the first case here in Australia. It's we've got a long way to go to get this level of consistency, which allows us to get a visitor economy working again, and people can move about safely with the right arrangements in place, and that's what we continue to push for.
So would you want the level to be somewhat similar, or even more than what JobKeeper was?
I think JobKeeper's been a really good program. It's expensive public policy, but you know what? It's public policy that's worked. Business understands it. We understand that there'll need to be increasing targeting around industries that need continued support for the right reasons, because the employment outcomes and the economic generation and the ability for us to have product and investment ready to go when the market can move again. And that's our position. I think what we want to see is a continuation of targeted support for industries that need it. There is a recovery underway without question. The tourism and visitor economy employs 1 in 12 working Australians in a full part-time or casualised arrangement. We need to work with government to get an outcome and a constructive outcome. That's what we're working towards.
So I mean, that initial figure though of JobKeeper at $1,500 a fortnight, is that what you would be aiming towards, or down to $1,200 a fortnight, or even more? What is there a figure that you've got in mind?
Well, that worked. I mean, it's gone through 2 stages. I mean, the second stage has continued to work and it's continued to be more targeted, hasn't it? With that 2 tiers, I think that 2 tiering is extremely important, because it eliminates the gap where, if you like, people that were paid less than the $1,500 a fortnight weren't artificially topped up over and above, if you like. So I thought that 2 tiering, or we thought that 2 tiering, and that's what we advocated, as in many other parts of industry, was a smart way to go, and also doesn't price people out of the market. There does need to be some ongoing flexibility in how we look at specific sectors. It's about targeting, and within that, the limits just have to be fair and constructive, and that's why we've always felt the current program has worked well. But we understand that the need for, as we move forward as a country, as our economy starts to rebuild, that we need to be specifically targeting sectors that need some extra support, because of the economic outcomes that they generate, and tourism and that broader visitor economy is clearly one of those.